Welcome to the Leedz Edutainment Podcast, featuring in-depth interviews with people in hip-hop culture, based out of New England. Leeds. We're on. Unbelievable,
man. How you been?
Good. How are you?
Doing awesome. No complaints.
Are you?
Yeah, doing awesome. I'm a new dad, so it's like I'm in the trenches of that. So, but yeah, it's been awesome, man. And no complaints at all. Life is good.
How old is your kid now?
He's a year.
Wow.
Yeah.
How long you been married?
I've been married for I think like 3 years at this point.
Oh wow.
Something like that.
Good for you.
2 or 3 years. Yeah. Thanks, man. Yeah, it's awesome. I got a great wife. She's an awesome mother. Yeah, man, we're just doing this thing together. We're parents.
Sheel Davé is a parent. That is amazing.
I know, man. So where are you at right now?
I'm in Weymouth. Right now. I was in Hull, but now I'm in Weymouth.
Cool. You still have a place in Hull?
No, unfortunately, my marriage didn't work out. So I'm in Weymouth.
Sorry to hear about that.
It happens. I'm not the first, nor will I be the last.
How'd you get so skinny?
Am I skinny?
Yeah,
Well, thank you. I think it's the new sweatshirt. Probably the divorce. Made me lose 20 pounds, maybe.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that.
So if you want to lose weight, just get divorced. I'm just kidding.
Nice.
Me and you have known each other a long time.
We have. Yeah, it's, I don't know how many years, like
20 years.
20 years. Wow. That's crazy. Yeah, I think it's crazy. I was talking to somebody about just like the shows that we used to play and how sort of like ambitious you were with your lineups that you used to put together. And I appreciate that because it was like my metal band Irepress was opening up for like Immortal Technique and Cool Keith, and it was unheard of at the time. I think now it's not as taboo anymore, but I feel like you definitely like we're willing to take risks when no other promoter was in the city, which is awesome. Yeah,
and I definitely want to get into all this, but I want to start a little farther back with you.
Yeah, let's do it.
Because you have a good history too. Before we go to the meeting of the minds in 2003, are you from Sharon? Is that what it is?
Yep.
Are you born and raised there?
So I was born in Methuen, and I was
Methuen. That's near me.
Is it?
Where I grew up. Yeah.
Where'd you grow up?
Well, I grew up in Sandown, New Hampshire, and Georgetown, Mass. But we spent a lot of time in the Methuen and Lawrence area.
Nice. Yeah. So I was born there, and then I was raised in Sharon. Yep. So I was there my whole life. Now I live in Canton, which is right next to Sharon.
Yeah. You're obviously Indian descent, right? Like, How did you end up? Is your family first generation? Like, how's that go?
Yeah. So I'm first generation American.
Oh, you are.
So my parents both grew up in India. They came here many years ago, and then raised my brother and I in Sharon. So they actually, when they landed in America, they came to North Andover first. So they lived in North Andover, and then they ended up moving to Sharon because they heard the school systems were good, and so that's where we were raised and had a great childhood. Growing up in kind of like a middle class suburb of America. I had a really good childhood.
Sharon's known as being a predominantly Jewish community, isn't it?
Yeah. Yep.
Did you convert, or would you?
I went to a lot of bar and bat mitzvahs, and a lot of my friends growing up were Jewish, and I was definitely a minority. My brother and I, but the group of friends that we grew up with were definitely diverse. Like we had some Indian friends, we had some, South Asian, Jewish American friends, African American. So like we definitely had a pretty diverse group of friends growing up, and obviously like it's kind of like what led us to playing music together as well as children.
It's funny. I had a gig. I worked for Bergston Music as well. So we bring
But yeah,
backline all over, a lot of drums. Um, but I think I ended up in the Sharon High School recently,
oh yeah,
and it was beautiful, immaculate place.
yeah. So I haven't been there since they built a new high school, but
Dude, dude,
it's crazy.
performance center is off the hook. The gym is off the hook. What I walked through was like, this looked like a college, looked like
Yeah,
an elite,
I heard.
looked like Northeastern wellness center.
I heard. Yeah, I mean Sharon has definitely like come up in a lot of ways. I think it's definitely a little bit more diverse now than it was before.
Yeah.
There's definitely like a heavier brown and Asian community now, which is cool to see. A lot of Indian people live in Sharon now. I think the school system draws a lot of people in.
Yeah. That thing was like, oh, you show your kid that school, you're going here. They're like, oh my God, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Holy, let's move here quick.
Yep.
So when do you come from a musical background? Where did the music start? Because obviously you and your brother both play. So like, was that embedded early?
Yeah. So music was always in our household. My father was a singer in college. He was like playing cricket and singing in college. And so, yes, music was huge in my household. We used to go to Hindu temple, and we would always watch the musicians that were playing inside of the temple. And that's kind of what drew us in. And, my parents were like exposed to American pop music too, like Michael Jackson Thriller was bumping in our household, Prince records. But meanwhile, they were listening to like Indian classical and like Bollywood film music. So, um, yeah, I mean, we were exposed to that at a really young age, and then we started getting into like rock. My brother and I started getting to like rock music, alternative rock, metal, bands like Tool, Deftones, Nirvana, Soundgarden, Pearl Jam, even like U2, Led Zeppelin, things like that. So
Yeah, I
we
love it
definitely
all.
were super into like rock music growing up, but at the same time, we were listening to Michael Jackson. We were listening to R&B music like Bobby Brown, New Edition, um, Cyndi Lauper, like all sorts of things. My uncle actually put us onto a lot of music growing up too. Like he got us into Fleetwood Mac, just to name one of many artists that he got us into. So yeah, music has always been a part of our lives from a young age.
Did you start off playing like Indian music, or did you start playing rock right off the bit rap?
So
Really?
you're talking about like instrumentally?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I actually started playing saxophone in was it middle school or high school. So I
Yeah.
was in a band. I played saxophone in the band, and then I was always like, it always like didn't really, it totally didn't speak to me. Didn't totally speak to me at the time. So I was always like banging on um, desks and tables, and I was always had this like sort of rhythmic spirit. And I asked my father to sign me up for drum lessons, and so that's kind of how that happened. And yeah, I fell in love with drums. I fell in love with like the coordination aspect of it, just rhythm. Rhythm was just like a huge, I don't know. It When I discovered drums, it was a big turning point in my musical, I guess, journey. I feel like I was like, wow, I feel like I'm very rhythmic. I definitely am very melodic too, but I sort of like fall somewhere in between rhythm and melody. And yeah, so drums started playing. I think I was in like eighth grade. Um, yeah, and then I started jamming with my brother. My brother started playing guitar. We set up shop in my parents' basement. Started a high school band, which was called Irepress. Some of our friends from high school were in the band as well. So yeah, that's kind of like the brief history.
Did you play the djembe?
I did. The djembe actually got me in a lot of trouble. I used to bring the djembe around with me everywhere I went, like from like mainly in college. Actually, it got me many noise violations. Got me actually kicked out of a dorm. permanently.
So,
Yeah. So, but yeah, I
so
did play.
I've set up a few. There's these organizations, Indian organizations, that throw these concerts. They fly people in from India to play these schools. Didn't play Sharon. They played a couple other ones. I was in Burlington and a few other things. They had the djembe going.
Nice. Yeah,
They always got interesting percussion set up with them.
yeah.
Those bands. So it's
So I played a lot of Indian percussion. So
yeah.
djembe is an African instrument.
Oh, I thought, but they were playing it. They every Indian band that I brought needed the djembe for some reason.
As far as backline goes.
Yeah.
Got it. Yeah. So my mother got me several Indian pieces of percussion, several pieces of Indian percussion when she would go to India. And I've been to India many times, but she bought me a set of tabla, dolak, just like hand drums. So I was exposed to that at a pretty young age too. I never really learned from a guru, which is something that I want to do at some point.
Did you use bongos too?
Yeah, I think hand percussion is just big in the Indian culture.
Yeah. You said the first band was Irepress, right?
Yep.
Which is funny because you still have the Irepress at Gmail that you still use as your main email. And you actually, when I was typing it in, I even have the Irepress at hotmail.com too.
Oh yeah.
On file. That's how long we've known each other.
That's crazy.
Since Hotmail.
In so many years. Yeah, I mean, I have a personal email that I use for like other like non-musical stuff too. So yeah, I have to preserve that Gmail.
That's great. So you and your brother Sean start this Irepress band, which was basically an instrumental heavy rock. Would you just call it heavy rock? What would you call the music genre that it was?
Yeah, so I would call it instrumental metal.
Instrumental metal.
Yeah.
No singer.
No singer.
Very
I mean, we did have singing
later.
The first sort of like first phase of the band during high school, we had two singers actually, and then we ended up going to college, and by default we had to just like start writing music without the singers, and that's kind of how like we were sort of forced into that. And then instrumental metal sort of became a thing at one point, and we sort of found our home there, but we never really fit in, to be honest, anywhere.
Yeah. Well, that band, what was that band? ISIS? name. They might have to change their name these days, but they were a big one in that genre, weren't they?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, they were huge.
They played the Middle East all the time. I remember you telling me that you had major label interest before you went to college. Was that was for Irepress?
That was for Irepress. Yeah, when we had
to me about how that happened.
Yeah, so there was like a contest. Like internet was just like popping at the time. It was like, whoa, you can download and upload music to websites, and I found a contest. I think it was called like Street Labs or something like that, and it was an Island Def Jam contest. And this is when like new metal was like popping, like Korn, Limp Bizkit, Deftones, which I don't even really call them new metal at this point. I think they're kind of in a world of their own, but new metal was really like taking off, and I guess our band sort of fit into that genre. And so I uploaded a couple songs. I think it was like a day later, I got a call from the head A&R and was like, tell me more, like, we're really digging this stuff. And so I didn't even know how to have those types of conversations at the time with like a senior A&R at a major label. And my voice was probably just like super high pitch at the time. Like, you know, I was really young. We were like 16, you know, like max, I'd say 16. And so we had the conversation. He realized, he's like, what are your plans? And this was senior year of high school. And I was like, oh, we're going to college next year. And it was kind of like click after that. Nothing really came about after that. But so that was our like short stint of like one conversation with a major label.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that story. And you were like, I'm going to college. And they were like, goodbye.
Yeah. It was just kind of like, why are you going to college? But I mean, from we didn't really know anything else. You know, our parents were like, you go to high school, then you go to college. Like, I think if we were to tell our parents, yo, like, we want to be a full-time band, they would have just kind of laughed at us and be like, no, you guys are crazy. I mean, and looking back, I'm happy that we didn't take that route. Probably strung out on like a park bench or something at this point.
Yeah, hold on one second. I just got to adjust my Wi-Fi. Sorry. 1 second. Moment. And we're good. We're back. Sorry about that.
Okay.
So you end up in Northeastern, right?
Yep.
Studying music business.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually came from University of Rhode Island. I transferred there from URI. And I was studying computer science at URI, and I was like, this is not for me. And then I found that program, the music business program, and yeah, I transferred over to Northeastern year 2 of college for me, and then yeah, that's how we met.
Yeah, so like I said, I was there before I met you. I was there for a year, did the whole tri-semester thing.
Mhm.
Then I had to like cut myself in trouble. So I had to take like 2 semesters off. And I came back on the 3rd semester. They threw me in the YMCA.
Yep.
And across the hall is Mr. Sheel Davé.
Yeah, it was
with a
like
gang of hooligans, with a
I
gang
know.
of transfer hooligans in the YMCA mixed with, because they had nowhere else to put us, because that was when Northeastern was overbooking their students.
Yep.
And
Yeah, it was like, so what, we were on like the 6th floor, and the 7th floor was like ex-convicts.
yeah, no, seventh floor, I think it was like the female floor or something, or mixed, and then below us was the troubled individuals, because they had them like chain link fenced off from us, like we were like
Right.
separated.
That was crazy, man. I feel like yeah, we were also like, I'll speak for myself. I'm definitely a degenerate in that hallway. I remember there was one night where I had a couple friends come in from like I don't know, like some hometown friends came in for the night or whatever, and it was complete destruction. I don't know if you remember that, where like the lights.
I remember you being. Am I allowed to say or speak honestly here?
Yeah.
I don't want you to get in trouble. But yeah, you were a destructive by nature individual. You would just destroy stuff for no reason. Like,
yeah, I don't know.
remember
Man.
this story vividly. Like, we're sitting there waiting for the elevator, and you just got like a cup of orange juice, and for no reason, you're just like, I'm gonna dump it all over the place.
Wow. Damn. Yeah, no, I mean, I'm definitely not proud of that. You know? I was just like a degenerate college kid, you know, like I was like away from the
debauchery.
family. It was complete debauchery, but yeah, I hope I didn't stress too many people out at that time, but
we had a lot of fun in the short amount of time we were there.
Yep, we had fun. Shout out Brian Crayer, RP Thompson.
RP Thompson. I was trying to think. Was there Jose was at the end?
Yeah.
Rob Fox. Rob Fox from Wisconsin.
Yeah. I think was it like Rob Fox or Rob Fitch? I forget.
No, it's Rob Fitch, Fox. Maybe. And then who was the hockey dude? Who was the hockey dude that was into stocks? He ended up doing some stock stuff for me. He was good.
Yeah,
it's quite the floor. They had that dude from Maine. It was like Kevin from Maine. That's how he'd always introduce himself. I'm from Maine all the time.
Yeah, what a time, man. I mean, you exposed me to like deep underground hip hop at the time, which was nuts.
Yeah, because I was a DJ at the time, and I was making mixtapes, and you were literally across the hall. So I was making them while you were playing them, and the most notable was me playing Poor Righteous Teachers, and you're like,
man, amazing. It was like when I heard that record, I think it was Word is Life, and there was another track on that record that was insane.
God's
It was
Earth,
like
God's Earth and
God's Earth.
85ers.
Yo, when I heard that, there was like, and I feel like, you know, from a drummer's perspective at the time, there was just like the production was just like all like pocket drums.
Yeah.
And I feel like Wise Intelligent, right? That was his name.
Yep.
His just like he had a crazy pocket. And I feel like rhythmically I was so drawn to their music, and that was just like one of there was like Jeru the Damager.
Jerry the Damager, yeah.
Who else? Like Diggable Planets. Like there were so many things you exposed me to that I was like, this is crazy. Like your wealth of knowledge when it came to just like hip hop at the time, I was like, this was great. Because I remember my cousin had played Mos Def and Kweli for me, the whole like sort of like Raucous and Black Star movement. And that sort of like Common, Mos Def. I feel like there was definitely an overlapping of influences between, you know, my older cousin and you. And I was like, okay, now I'm like, I feel like I have a good exposure to like hip hop music. And then, you know, simultaneously I was playing in a metal band and also like formed my other band at the time, which was the Eclectic Collective.
Oh, I remember.
Yeah.
Because it's funny because we were all in this weird transitional spot. Like we're like finishing college.
Mm-hmm.
You got Irepress going and you're starting this new band, Eclectic Collective, which at the time I remember it was called The Outlet.
Oh yeah. The Outlet, man.
The Outlet. And I remember when Salim and Dua were coming by the dorm and RP and everybody is hanging out, and Salim talking us being so opinionated about our hip hop taste, you know, and what rappers should be doing.
Yeah.
And
yeah, that's funny.
Salim still busts my balls. He's got some of my old mixtapes. But
oh, I have some too. I have a CD book full of those.
Nice, yeah. But yeah, it was a crazy time because I was trying to become a promoter, and you were already playing the Middle East with Irepress.
Right.
And you already had good rapport there, and you had done shows with Shred, who was booking upstairs and downstairs. And I'm like, dude, get me in there. I need to book a show. I need to get a show.
I remember.
And it's honestly because of you, he responded to me because I name dropped you.
Wow.
Because I had hit him up many times and I got no response. And then I was finally like, Sheel Davé from Irepress,
yeah,
blah, 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 blah. And he's like, all right, I'll give you a shot. So to be honest, you're probably the one that kickstarted my career. your referral.
Nice. So where's my commission at?
I have to pull up the books on that. I don't know. Did we discuss commission?
No, I'm happy, man. I'm happy that I felt like now that we talk about it, I felt like I remember that. But yeah, I'm glad to be a part of it.
Yeah, I mean, huge. And then like even before I was in the Middle East, we started doing shows. Like I even opened up for you guys as a DJ at that place across. What was that dive bar across the street from where we were? Remember that thing? It was like down.
Oh, I forget it, man.
It was just probably an Irish name.
Yeah. Oh shit, man. What was the name of that bar? You talking about across from our dorm room?
Yeah, it's literally we walked across the street and it went down.
Yeah.
And now it's like I think it's a Mexican place now. But
yeah, no, I can't believe that name is slipping.
No stage, just like
just on the floor,
all on the floor. And
it was fun though. I remember that like all of our friends from Northeastern came through and we packed it.
Yo, you guys always packed it, bro. Like that was the one thing about you guys off the rip. It was like you just brought people out. I don't know how you did it. How did you do it? Because
I think from an very early stage in our careers as musicians, I feel like me personally, I always like value community. And I feel like that's kind of like what has brought me to the point where I'm at now in my career, where like I'm still able to play shows and play sold out shows now in our hometown. Because we worked so hard to build a community. And I think it just happened so organically where like, it was kind of this like friends first sort of thing. Like we made so many friends that like the friends were the main supporters at first and the friends told other friends about it. And we sort of built this this community around it. And I feel like, I mean, I believe that that's the reason why we were able to bring so many people in.
Yeah, and you guys were good. That helps too.
Thank you.
So so you have Irepress, which is a instrumental metal band, and then it was your brother, and then it was Dino at the time, right? Dino.
Yeah. John did
and then you form Eclectic Collective, which is pretty much a funk, soul, R&B band.
Yeah.
And was pretty, which was a pretty popular thing at the time because of the Roots, right? The Roots were just like blowing up. So like these type of bands, Audible Mainframe, and a bunch of other people that tried to do it. That's what a lot of the gigs were with those style of bands.
Right.
Now, was it hard for you to make the transition from being a drumming from metal to drumming to that? Like, how does that work?
No, it wasn't. It was actually, it wasn't even a transition because they were all kind of moving together. It wasn't like one began and the other one stopped. I think it was just, I was doing both, and now I look back and I'm grateful that I was able to have exposure to like many different genres at the time as a musician. And so I think like each project sort of lend a hand to the other. Right. And it also like helped us go back to that point where like we drew a lot of people because we had so many friends. Like I was playing this metal band, but also playing this sort of soul funk band. And you'd see friends and fans that supported both of those bands at our shows. And when we played together, it was just like a big party. And so, yeah, I think I was never afraid to sort of take risks when it came to genres and like crossing over. And but yeah, no, so it wasn't hard to transition between the two. I feel like it actually like it was like good for me as a musician.
Yeah, and we did some great shows in the beginning.
Yeah.
We're talking about the All Asia. He texted, Sheel texted me. He's like, "Oh, we're gonna talk about All Asia." It was all before the Middle East. It was All Asia, and you guys thank you for playing All Asia for some of my early shows.
Yeah, no problem.
The one show in particular that I brought my own PA, and we only had it going through like one speaker, and you guys were rocking it anyway.
Yeah, shout out. I think you booked us with like Lifted, and I think even Head Wrap played one of those shows.
Western Front, we did Western Front.
Western Front, that was fun. Yeah, I don't know, it was cool because like I feel like you had been booking predominantly hip hop shows, and I would see the people at the shows when we would play. At first they would be like, "Yo, what is this? Like, right. Why are they on stage?" And I feel like we'd see like Peter Parker on the side of stage just like going berserk to our music, and I feel like people saw you and people like him supporting us, and they're like, okay, like my mind is like open to this at this point. So definitely grateful for that.
Yeah, because there was two things going on. So with Irepress, I was putting you on some real underground hip hop, like really hardcore rap shows. Like, yeah, you guys opened up for obviously Immortal Technique, which was huge. Necro.
Oh yeah. Oh my God. Ill Bill.
I think you might have done Cool Keith too.
We did Cool Keith twice. We did Master Killa.
Yeah.
No, it was Killa Ace maybe. I forget, but I mean, I have a question for you. Is like, why did you feel like that was necessary, or like why did you think that fit?
Well, because I grew up in an era where those mixed a little bit. So like you had the Judgment Night soundtrack. I don't know if you heard that.
House of Pain hat that you're wearing right now.
So I grew up in the era where like 90s hip hop and like alternative rock and metal were like predominantly
crossover.
Right. I'm a little, older than you. So it's like those were like popular bands, like genres, you know what I mean? So like they mixed a lot, like Anthrax, Public Enemy. So I knew Run DMC, Aerosmith. I mean, I know that these things mix. Yeah. But it's to certain hip hop it mix. It doesn't mix with all of it. Certain things you can mix it with. And those shows that I was putting you on with Irepress, as far as those type of shows, it worked. And people would come up to me and be like, "I like the band." You know what I mean? Like, because you guys also didn't rap or sing, so it was like just cool. Like it could work. Like if there was someone up there screaming, maybe might not have worked.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
For certain shows.
I feel like you were like a master curator, but you also knew how to like push the limits
Those are
of
fucking
just like
early
the experience.
days.
The experience was awesome because I feel like it gave us an opportunity to like get our chops up, like play more shows on stages like the Middle East, and at that time like we didn't really have those types of opportunities. We're like, all right, let's go open up for Cool Keith, and it was like, I mean, looking back, I'm just like, that's crazy because what artists like really get those types of opportunities, and I don't know, it's
Yeah.
cool, and I feel like a lot of people from the metal world saw that on like a relatively speaking scale. I feel like people saw that and were like, oh, this band is cool. Like they're sort of like crossing over into these different genres, and I think we got respect, but also like I think it was hard for us to fit in because like people didn't really know where to put us. Is it like do we play with bands like that band ISIS, or this band called Pelican, which was like M2 at the time were pretty big in that sort of like metal and post metal, instrumental metal scene. Um, and then yeah, I think um, playing those hip hop shows really sort of exposed me to a different type of audience too, and like when you go to a metal show, sometimes you see people with their arms crossed, sometimes they're moshing. I feel like that, and then going from that to a hip hop show was like there was definitely um, similarities between the two. And
Yeah,
so
it's definitely a lot of this at a hip hop show.
yeah, it thickened up our skin, and it like made us sort of confident. Where like it doesn't matter like how people are reacting as long as we're just like having fun and confident on stage. Like I think that sort of like lives with me till this day. Um, so I'm happy about that.
Great shows, man. And I'm glad you were part of those early. That's my first year or two promoting hip hop.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Like looking back on that,
Yeah.
that's like almost 20 years ago.
Damn. So we sort
That's
of
like,
evolved together, which is awesome.
yeah. And like then that was Irepress, but then you guys took off with EC and became like you guys were headlining Harper's Ferry, Middle East. You guys were doing so many gigs and doing really well. And you duo and you brought in Noni, and you had how many people were in the band at the end? How many were in that
Like
band at the end?
10 or 11 or something. It was just too much.
Yeah, so you guys became like
Special blend.
yeah, Special Blend. Yeah, shout out Special Blend. And then all of a sudden you guys are like, now we're done with it. In the peak of its success, and like everybody still wants to book you guys like, we've had enough of EC. We're gonna start this new thing called Bad Rabbits. I was
Yeah.
like, are these guys crazy? I was like, what are they thinking?
Yeah.
EC is so successful.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely successful inside of the city, and I feel like it economically was sort of hindering because we couldn't really like just hop in a van with all 10 of us and just like play shows without it costing us thousands of dollars. So
Right.
it was like it was half of like a stylistic sort of departure from the sort of like um, jam band scene that we were sort of like fitting into at one point. And then partly because of economics and like trying to just scale down a band so that we can actually like play shows outside of the city and not go broke doing it. But yeah, I mean, like there's still people I know that listen to Eclectic Collective songs and records, and I'm proud of that stuff as well. I just think that like it wasn't the type of like brand that we wanted to continue, and I think it was just hard to be in a 10-piece band. Like it just didn't like we didn't have a label, we didn't have budget, and like venues weren't paying us enough to really like pay ourselves, so it just didn't make sense anymore.
Surprised they weren't paying you because Graham was a stickler for getting that money, from what I remember. He took me down for a few $100s. I was like,
Yeah,
whoa, I didn't even know what I was doing yet. He's like, you're going to pay us. I'm like, geez, okay.
Damn.
Shout out, Graham. Was it really more just you didn't want to get stigmatized as like this Boston jam band?
I think it had a lot to do with it. Yeah, I think that had a lot to do with it. Because once we got
trick pony.
Yeah, once we got sort of like labeled or like sort of labeled as that, it was hard to like get out. It's hard to like get out and hop on shows with like other bands that we actually liked and listened to. And it was definitely unique. It was a unique project, and like I said, I'm proud of that that time as a musician, and I'm proud of that band. But I feel like it didn't feel like truly like authentic to me. Um, but I'll just speak for myself on that one.
But I've heard it from a couple other people too. So,
Yeah,
um, so what was the goal with Bad Rabbits? Like, again, this is now a stylistic change. Again, it's a little more, it's not as noticeable as the EC Irepress change,
yeah,
but it's still a stylistic change.
yeah. I think the
Oh,
goal was to really focus our sound a little bit because the EC was like really all over the place. It's like let's have a funk song, let's have a hip hop song, let's have an R&B song, let's have a rock song. I think Bad Rabbits was an opportunity for us to really focus in on like who we wanted to be, like what style of band we wanted to be. And even with Bad Rabbits, it's definitely like a hybrid of sounds, but I feel like we were able to like carve our own sort of path. Um, and like when you hear a Bad Rabbit song, for me personally, I feel like, and even some of the feedback that I've received over the years is like that sounds like a Bad Rabbit song, and now people sort of compare other artists to Bad Rabbits on a very, again, like relatively small scale. We're not the biggest band in the world by any means, but like there were times where people would put us in magazines like Alternative Press mentioning other artists saying for fans of Bad Rabbits. So they would use our name to sort of describe other artists and try to reel them in. So I think that was like a goal of ours was to really just like be our own thing rather than sort of like genre hop too much. And also like yeah, going back to like scaling the band down as members, it was like we went from 10 members to like I think it was 5 members at the time, so it was half the band. So it's like way easier to deal with as far as like band dynamics, band economics, things like that. And then our goal was to really just like instead of just like starting and playing venues, like proper venues in the city, my idea was to really just like start playing house parties. Like let's forget about venues for a second. Let's just play warehouse parties, house parties. And we did that, and we sort of like created this demand and this scene around house parties, basement shows, and so then we were able to like create some hype in the city, and then we scaled up into a venue, a proper venue. When we got to the venue was like sold out, so like it was hard to get into these Bad Rabbits house shows, so it created this demand. And then when we scaled the venues, it was like, okay, now we have space to bring more people in, and people actually bought tickets, and it was like, okay, like this band can sell tickets in the city, and at the time and even still it's hard to find artists that sell tickets even in their own cities, like you have to like beg people to like sell tickets and give them a certain amount of tickets to sell, or they're not going to be on the show, like there's these things where like, we didn't have to worry about that because I think we started creating this demand and making sure that we were only able to fit like 20 people in a basement show, and there was like 100 people outside waiting to try to get into this. And I think the EC, the Eclectic Collective, and Irepress lent a hand to that too because we had so many friends that were willing to kind of like come on board to this new project called Bad Rabbits.
yeah. A lot of Rug Road, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
A lot of Rug Road in the
I
beginning.
remember Salim like crowd surfed at a Rug Road Bad Rabbit show, and he just got like thrown through the ceiling. It was
I used to
insane.
I used to get so mad at those warehouse parties, man, because I
Yeah,
was sitting here with all the venues paying all this money and licensing and all this like
yeah.
legal shit you're supposed to do. And you guys are just like setting up shop across the street while I'm at Harper's Ferry, like throwing shows in someone's basement, not
I
giving a
mean, that
fuck.
was by design, though. I mean, like I said, like we wanted to really start there so that we could actually sell tickets in a venue when the time was right.
Yeah, and you did. And Bad Rabbits took off pretty freaking quick, dude. I mean, you talk about that era of the basement parties. I remember that era. It's like early, like, so like 2009, 10, 11, 12, that era. And and then you guys moved along pretty quick. And then is this around the same time you get a job at Karmaloop?
Yep,
It's
yep, yep, yep.
that era too. It's the Karmaloop
Right, yeah,
basement party era,
like
which
online
is
streetwear fashion in general was just like taking off at the time, and we were able to like find a sort of marriage between the two.
Karmaloop was a wild place.
It was a wild place. It was a wild time. Shout out Greg Selko.
Oh
Yeah,
man.
that was an incredible experience. Like that was my first real job outside of college. But Greg saw an opportunity to like really partner with it in a musical act. And Bad Rabbits was one of his first sort of musical experiences. You know, we had our ups and downs, and we learned a lot throughout that relationship. But Greg was just a huge supporter throughout that whole process. Like he would book us for Carmelou parties, um, and then he helped put us on tour with Kendrick Lamar, Steve Aoki, on a Carmelou sponsored tour. So like, and then he actually introduced us to Teddy Riley,
Yeah.
and you know that was a crazy learning experience. Like a lot of mistakes were made. You know, like we were just kind of sort of our business wasn't really tight at the time, and so we made some pretty poor business mistakes at the time. And until this day, those songs haven't really seen the light of day. I think like two of those songs have been released, but we did a whole album with Teddy Riley. But yeah, you know, blessed that Greg introduced us to Teddy Riley. I'll never forget the time he put Teddy on the phone with me, and I was like, this is one of my producer idols, you know, at the time.
Yeah.
So that was crazy. But yeah, I mean, I think um, that that relationship with Carmelou really helped us sort of get some attention on a national level. Because he had put us one of our merch pieces on the front page of Carmelou, and I remember the Carmelou had some like crazy amount of unique visitors a month, which is sort of unheard of at the time when it comes to like an online fashion website. And e-commerce was just sort of taking off. Um, and so yeah, he blessed us with a lot of incredible opportunities. He being Greg Selko that owned Carmelou. Um, yeah, and so that helped us sort of like get some national attention, and then um, we did that sort of failed album with Teddy Riley. Incredible experience. Like he's a absolute musical genius. But I think there were just reasons out of our control that we just couldn't get it together. The whole business, we didn't have like great representation at the time. I don't know. It just like we take a lot of responsibility for like poor decisions that were made during that time. But then
Why do you think you were making poor decisions? Because you are a smart guy.
yeah. Well, it's like going. I appreciate that, but when you get into a situation where, like, admittedly, we started working with one of our idols, you know, and it was like we sort of became intoxicated by that, and you know, our managers at the time were young too, and you know, a lot of lessons were learned um, as far as how to deal with a producer or the business on that sort of scale. And Teddy comes from 90s R&B and hip hop, and so the way he dealt with business at the time was sort of different. It was almost like it wasn't stuck in a specific time. It was just like his experience is his experience, and the way he dealt with business was the way he wanted to deal with business. And the sort of like new evolution of the music industry at the time, what we were doing and the representation that we had, just like the pieces just weren't put together properly. We ended up spending way too much money on it. And we didn't have control. Like we were completely out of control in that situation. Like we were taking trips to LA while Teddy was using the studio and working on our project. And then we would take trips out and we kept spending like so much money on this project. And at one point we were like in so deep on this project, and like we don't even know how we're gonna like promote this album at this point. But we were so like I said, we were so intoxicated by the experience. We just kept going and making more songs and not even thinking about like the price tag that would be associated with like making even one song with Teddy Riley. We were just like, just go. Greg was like, just go, have fun, you know, like make these records, and we'll deal with the rest of the shit later. And then when we got to the point where we're dealing with the business side of things, like we just couldn't get it together. It was like at that point we had spent way too much money on it, and even the songs, like you know, I feel like they weren't fully mixed at the time. We ran out of money to get them mixed and mastered, and we were like, there was just too much sort of like baggage and like business trauma associated to that record. We were like, let's just put this aside and let's just come back to
Ooh.
Earth and like make this other album, which was American Love. And we made it with our friend Brad Lewis, and that's the album that sort of like took us to a whole different level. But even before that, like we had first album EP was Stick Up Kids, and that like took us to South by Southwest, and that was the album that Karma really promoted. And South by Southwest, we had a ton of major label interest at that point, and nothing ever sort of like came about. We got courted by like every major label, and then after that is when we started working with Teddy Riley. So I didn't want to like forget about that jumping point. So it was the album Stick Up Kids, which then led us to working with Karma Loop and Teddy Riley. The Teddy Riley album, which was titled American Dream, never came out. I'm not sure if it ever will. And so we took a step back from that, and then we made an album called American Love, which was produced by our friend Brad Lewis out in the Bay Area. And that's the album that took us to like Jimmy Kimmel Show, Craig Ferguson, Arsenio Hall. And we did that pretty much off just the strength of the fan base that we built at the time. You know, it took us to like, we ended up playing Warped Tour twice. So I don't know, like incredible things happened from American Love, and it happened to be an album that we made with our friend, not with this like massive producer, you know.
Pretty impressive, Sheel.
Hey.
I mean, did you realize what you just said all right there?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I'm just like.
I mean, I know the Teddy Riley thing fell through, but geez, man, you freaking trumped it with everything else.
I don't know. I'm grateful, man. The things that we experienced were like, I could just like hang my hat up at this point and be like, yo, I'm happy. Like, I'll be able to tell my son these stories, you know, which is awesome.
You also got picked up by Cara Lewis Booking, didn't you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so for people that don't know, Cara Lewis is like the OG booking agent in hip hop. Like Eric B and Rakim mentioned her in the beginning of, I think it's Paid in Full. I forget which one it is exactly, but I should know that. But that's how long she's been around. You know,
she's gangster. She's like an OG.
Oh my God, I've dealt with her.
Yeah, yeah.
Dude, so she's so. I'll tell you one quick story, then you tell me yours. She don't really like emails, even in this era.
No.
If she wants to get a hold of you, like as a talent buyer, most people like would book an agent, email. No, not Cara Lewis. She calls you, and if you don't drop everything you're doing and get her what she needs in that exact moment, you're gonna hear about it. That's how gangster, and you're worried about it because she represents a lot of good talent. So you're like, all right, let me drop everything I'm doing right now.
Yeah, no, she was cool. Like we worked with her for a very short amount of time. She was good friends with one of our old managers, Kevin Morrow. Kevin Morrow helped build House of Blues, the Sunset Strip, I think, in LA. And Kevin Morrow was one who created Smoke and Groove Store. So he was one of my
favorites. One of my faves.
Yeah. So Kevin Morrow was the man. Like we had a falling out with Kevin at the time, but we were like, me personally, I was just like this young and sort of like ungrateful musician, and we had a manager that was just trying to do the right thing for us, and we sort of like didn't do right by our management at the time. Like we were just kind of like spoiled. Like I don't know, we were just kind of assholes. I don't know how else to put it. And
was it you or was it Dua? Was it just Dua? Just say it was just Dua. We're fine.
No, it wasn't Dua. I think
for those that don't know, Dua is the Talib Kweli of New England. I said it. You don't need to.
Oh,
shit. And if he wants to say anything to me, he knows it's all good because he's pranked me about 3 times in my life.
That's hilarious. But yeah, so Kevin Morrow and his partner Tyler Rutkin, they were our managers, and they knew Cara Lewis. And so Kevin put us in a room with Cara Lewis and was like, listen, I love your band. Let's work together. And so we ended up working with him, with her, sorry. And she had booked us on, I think she got us on like Roots Picnic. She got us an opening for like Chance the Rapper. She got us some really incredible opportunities. And like,
yo, do you realize what you just said again?
Yeah, I know, right? It's crazy.
Do you really? Chance the Rapper, Ruth Picnic, sitting along.
Yeah, I'm not even trying to like name drop real. Like it's just those are the things
No,
that came
it's
out.
fine. These are no. The reason I'm just saying this because these are
Yeah,
huge accomplishments that bands and artists and rappers are dreaming to get.
right. Yeah. Yeah, no, I try not to
You
take
achieved
that
it.
for granted, you know.
You don't. I don't take you as someone who does. That's why I'm emphasizing it because this is big.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. So yeah, so she booked us for a short amount of time. We ended up parting ways with the management, and I think she had left CAA and like
Yep.
went to go do her own thing, and I think she was only able to bring a certain amount of artists from CAA over, and she decided to drop us at the time, and then we ended up getting onboarded by another agent that was at CAA at the time, who's our agent now. Um, so yeah, I mean, prior to that, we were with the agency group, Justin Bridgewater, who's the man, and yeah, so we've kind of bounced around. Like, I feel like we never really found a home with like management. Now, pretty much, I manage the band, which feels right at this point. It's a lot of work, but it's not that much to manage at this point. It's pretty lean operation.
I always felt like you were always kind of like the business behind all the projects anyway. Like I always felt like nothing against the other guys, but you just had more of the business savviness than the other guys in
Yeah,
any of those bands.
everybody sort of played their own role. I definitely feel like I
Yeah.
was the quarterback in situations, and at times I felt like I was a punching bag. Like when you take that responsibility
Yeah,
of
yeah,
like
yeah.
a band leader, like you have to. It, with that comes a lot of like just balancing of dynamics in a band, and like certain people want to do certain things, and I feel like I just wanted the best for the band, but there were times where like we definitely clashed, and um, yeah, I mean, I learned so much. I feel like I'm able to have a much level-headed perspective now, because of the experiences that we went through, while I was, band leading and just like being the quarterback or the point person, whatever you want to call it, but also like putting most of the things together creatively, like making sure that our songs were actually like being finished, like from start to finish, whether it's like tracking the record from mixing to mastering. I felt like I was always there talking to all these creative partners.
Right.
So project managing everything always.
Yeah. So Bad Rabbits has all these things, right? It looks like this thing is going to take off and then you guys break up, right? Is that what happens? What
No,
happens?
we
Because
never
all of a
broke up.
sudden you guys just stopped.
Yeah. So we never broke up. I think
A couple of people left.
yeah, so Graham and Santi left. Like there was a time where we just weren't on the same page. Like I feel like there was a lot of sort of like personal things that came into play, and um like, to be transparent, like ex-wife drama, and it just came to like, not my ex-wife, and I don't have an ex-wife. I have one wife, but one of the members' ex-wives, wives, sort of like got involved, and it just like created this dynamic where like, and I'm not putting everything on her by any means. I feel like we all made some mistakes during that time, but I feel like there was just too much involvement from like outside ears and parties, and our emotions got the best of us, and I think that it created this sort of rift between us as members. And Santi had left the band first, and Graham had moved to
Wasn't
New York.
RP in the band? I thought RP was in the band.
RP was never like an official member of the band, but he was always part of like our early recordings, and he was a huge part of the creative process, on the first album, Stick Up Kids, and also like on one of our albums, American. Actually, he was a big part of most of the albums, to be honest. Like,
Even the new one, I hear synth. Who's doing synth then?
yeah, so that's Brad Lewis.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Brad Lewis produced him, and I pretty much like put together the whole album. Like he's an incredible. He's a musical genius. Like I could sit there and be in the same room as him like any day of the week, just watching him produce.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Bad Rabbits sort of fell apart, but Salim, Do It, and myself, we started the Eclectic Collective.
Yep.
We
I
felt like
remember.
yeah, we felt like we were the sort of like the foundation of this idea of being a band. Like these three friends started this band,
Yep.
and so we were the founding members of this sort of collective, you know, and so it came down to that. It was just like, all right, the three of us are remaining, and it was almost this like, and there's absolutely no disrespect to Santi and Graham. We're still friends with those guys. At this point, like we sort of put our differences aside and just realized that we're just grateful for the things that we accomplished together. And everybody's living good lives now. You know, like I think everybody's happy in their own sort of life at this point. But when it came down to it being just us three, it was like it felt right. It felt like okay, decisions are way easier to make. We don't have to answer to like 10 different people, whether it was a manager, you know, other band members. It was like it just became this thing where just it was like so easy to make decisions, and we are like, okay, like there's no reason for us not to continue this. And so we took a little bit of a step back during that time, and then I had injured my back. Dua's father had passed away, and Salim got a gig with Billie Eilish, and so Salim had.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, so like all those things sort of like took priority, and Bad Rabbits took a step back. But simultaneously, like we had made a record called American Nightmare, which was more focused on the rock side of our band's evolution. We made an EP called Mimi, and it didn't feel like we were totally focused on Bad Rabbits at the time. Um, I think we're really focused on it now, but in a much more sort of manageable way, because we all have our own lives outside of music, and yeah, and to sort of like I don't know, repeat what I've been saying, that like I'm just grateful that we're still able to do this, and I'm happy for
Yeah,
like all the
and I listened to the new one, the new album just came out, Garden of Eden, last night, and it feels very on brand for
yeah,
Bad Rabbits. Like it to
yeah,
me,
that was yeah.
it's like what it's everything I know Bad Rabbits to be. You know what I'm saying?
I'm glad
And
you feel that way. Yeah,
dope,
thank you.
dope.
Yeah, I mean that was our goal. It was like let's sort of go back to like us three being in a band and starting this idea of being in a band, and I mean most of those songs were written like 6 years ago. I think there was one song that was written. Yeah, there is one song that was written um, over the past like year or two, but yeah, so that those songs are pretty old at this point, but we're like getting ready to make our next record. We're going to LA in a few weeks after our Boston show, and then we're gonna hit the studio with Brad Lewis again and start working on the next record. We've already started demoing for it, which is sounding pretty tight already.
Shout out to Bob Bad Rabbits, you, Salim, and Ajiman.
Yo, it's so funny. Like your your relationship with Dua is really funny. I think with everybody, with all of us.
It's never been beef. It's just we should know how to joke with each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
It's like
he's
like
from
that.
Weymouth. I think he's from Weymouth, South Shore,
Yeah,
isn't he? Like where I'm
yeah.
living right now. So shout out to you, Dula, if you're watching. If you end up watching this, living in your
No,
hometown.
so, I mean, we're just like so much better friends now. Like we just get in a room together and we rehearse, and it's just like, damn, like what happened? Like what? How do we just sort of like forget this feeling of being good friends with each other? And I think like so our old saxophone player, Rob Oswald. I don't know if you remember him.
Oh.
He said something one time. He said, "Good friends make good music," and I think that's always stuck with us. But like we forgot a piece where like we were Slick Rick's backing band, which is crazy.
Oh yeah, yeah. I was gonna bring that up. I totally forgot to bring that up. When did that happen? I don't even remember that happening.
That was during the Eclectic Collective, the EC era.
I remember Audible Mainframe doing some Slick Rick shows. I never remember you guys, so it must have been out of state.
Yeah, so no, we did a bunch of shows. Like they were getting hired as this band, and so were we. And it was funny because there was this sort of like there was a camaraderie between the two. Like we love those dudes. We played shows with them, but it was also this like sort of competitive nature too. Like
definitely was
backing band, you know, like it, and like they're dope. They were a dope band, and you know, R.I.P. Victor. Yeah, and so like that was a tough moment for all of us when
oh my god
when Expo passed away. So But yeah, I mean, we were both of our bands were Slick Rick's backing band, and then he ended up taking us to like on sort of this like tour, mini tour with him. We played BB King several times with him in Times Square. We did a like a East Coast run. We were supposed to do Letterman with him too, but that fell apart like last minute or whatever. But yeah, that was an incredible experience. Like Slick Rick, the ruler
Well,
was.
good, because Slick Rick needs a band behind him.
Yeah.
Because I've done the show without the band, and I'm telling you, I've seen it with the band. The band's a lot better.
Yeah, I mean, it was like I hope we did it justice at the time, but
I'm sure you did.
But there's a lot of like, I mean, the instruments or just like the beat behind Slick Rick, like a lot of it is turntable, you know. So it was challenging to make the band. It was challenging for the band to do justice to that. There's a lot of 808s, and like sometimes you don't get that like low end from a band. It almost sounds like too live, and that was some of the feedback that we got a couple times. Um, sometimes people just wanted to hear him and the DJ, you know. So I think there's definitely like a time and place for.
No, they don't.
No,
No, they don't. I'm gonna tell you right now.
So
They don't.
when we played Times Square BB Kings with him, I remember someone came up to us and was saying that like they didn't like the band or something like that, and we just were like, why? And they just wanted to see him with the turntable because it's just like this nostalgic spirit with Slick Rick and the turntable, you know.
I get that. I totally get that someone wants to see that, but he's not a great frontman performer by himself without something backup. There's not enough to the show. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And I think
adding it's not as like
he's not a very lively performer. He just kind of raps his own songs and then he's done. Right. He doesn't really do anything else. And having the band there is going to make that show so much more entertaining.
Right. Understand.
That's that was my. Now I've seen them both. I've seen both sets, so I have fair. You know, I have data. I have data.
Yeah, he's definitely a tame performer. Like he has his hand in his pocket and just the mic.
Yeah, he's very minimalist.
Yep.
A lot of those old school New York guys are. He's not the only one. That's just kind of how like Rakim.
Yeah.
Rakim's a better live performer than Slick Rick, but he's very laid back. Big Daddy Kane is, you know, he's smooth, but he's a little more animated. But and KRS-One is, you know, a total beast. So I mean, they're all different. But Rick was more like smooth storyteller. You know what I mean? Like more flashy.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah, he let me wear his chains a couple times. Crazy.
Yeah. That's what you'd see back in the day. Everybody, I did a show with Slick Rick. Oh, here's 20 pictures of everybody wearing his chains.
Exactly. Yeah. I had to experience that at least one or two times.
I'm glad you. I remember hearing something like Busta Rhymes heard you guys play. It was like, yo, Bad Rabbits is the shit or something.
Yeah. So
what happened?
He came to one of the BB King shows. This is Slick Rick, and so Bad Rabbits had opened up for Slick Rick, and we were his backing band. So that was kind of like this package thing where like. We would be the open band, also his backing band, and our song "Stick Up Kids." Busta Rhymes was like, "Yo, that joint Stick Up Kids, that that shit is crazy," and like that was like our one moment with Busta Rhymes. I don't think we saw him after that, but it was cool. Like it was a legendary moment, very memorable.
So salute to Bad Rabbits. Did Irepress turn into Juniper Youth? Juniper Youth, is that what this is now?
Yeah, so Irepress didn't like turn into that. I think Irepress ended quite some time ago. Yeah, it's just like Irepress just sort of like just fizzled out a little bit. I think it was just like we just couldn't sustain it, like it was like instrumental metal band. Like how can we really like build a career?
Let me stop you real quick. Let me just stop you. You ended up incorporating a lead singer, I remember.
Yeah, so we did some songs with our band started in high school with singing, and so Jarrett, who was the singer of Irepress in high school, along with our other friend Shomik, there were two singers, and then Jarrett ended up playing keys in the instrumental version of the band. and then Jarrett ended up singing again on a couple songs, and yeah, and then I don't know, it just sort of like kind of fizzled out after that. But yeah, Juniper Youth was this thing where like Jarrett from Irepress and my brother Sean and I just decided to make music during the pandemic. So Sean, my brother, had sort of led the way in making songs with Jarrett, and they were like, "Hey, we have the songs. You want to play the drums on it?" And Juniper Road is the street that we grew up in.
Juniper Road. That's what
That's where Aeropress was created too. And so that was just kind of the name we put to it when we made a record, and yeah, it's still something that we work on, we entertain it. Like it just keeps us sort of involved in each other's lives, and obviously my brother's my brother, um, but I get to still make music with my friends and my brother, which is a blessing.
Yeah. So now, so nowadays, I also see online that you're kind of working with Zildjian and Pearl drums and cymbals.
Yeah, so I'm endorsed by Zildjian and Pearl,
Nice.
and so yeah, we do like they'll call me to do some content stuff here and there, which is awesome. And then I get to use their cymbals and their drums. And so yeah, I mean, I don't like work like it's a partnership, you know.
Sponsorship,
Yeah,
endorsement.
exactly.
The Zildjian just celebrated 400 years. Is that what it was?
Yeah, yeah. I was at
Did you
that.
go to that big party?
Yeah, it was nuts.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah. So I work at Bergston too, and they were prepping for it, and we had all the symbols in the warehouse, and
Yeah,
I didn't really. I mean, I knew of Zildjian's symbols. I didn't really understand the backstory of them been around for 400 years. I mean, what kind of company
I
has been
know.
around for 400 years?
I think it's one of the oldest companies in the world.
So what is it? What makes it special? It's like the way they put together the Turkish metal. I mean, what makes a Zildjian be able to be
So
what it is?
from what I understand, they have a proprietary way of making symbols, and I think um, there's just this timelessness that is attached to the name and the brand Zildjian, and they're constantly evolving their sound, and they have a lot of creative people on their team that's always like bringing new artists on board, and their artist relations. So they're the person who ran their artist relations team a while ago. Her name was Sarah. She she brought a lot of incredible artists on, and then she ended up leaving the company. But then another, actually a friend of mine, Eric Gross, who's now the head of artist relations, he sort of brings this sort of like young spirit. He brought a lot of younger artists on board now, a lot of young drummers, and so I think that like Zildjian has always been able to sort of like have their finger on the pulse when it comes to drummers and musicians. So yeah, I don't know. I think they're just a special company. You know, like they make incredible cymbals and good people, and yeah, great cymbals.
Hold on one second. My phone just went crazy.
Oh, good.
What the heck? Dude, all of us. Hold on one second. Oh my God. It keeps doing this thing to me where the phone rings and then all of a sudden music just comes out of nowhere playing. But I didn't catch everything you just said, but
Oh,
it was
good.
recorded. It's recorded.
Yeah, no worries at all.
But yeah, it's a pretty impressive company.
Yeah,
I think their warehouse is out here, right? Is it the
in
South
Norwell.
Shores? Yeah, Norwell. Yeah, I drove
Yeah,
by
I
it.
was just there last week. Yeah, it was last week grabbing some cymbals for this upcoming Bad Rabbit shows.
So now also back to you being married, father,
Mhm.
multiple bands.
Yeah,
Do you have a day job too? I'm guessing.
yeah. So I have a day job. I work 9 to 5 Monday through Friday. I help run an electronics recycling company in Canton. It's called Gizmogul. So
Nice.
we buy and sell secondhand electronics. Like we work with a lot of corporations, schools, universities, and we do their IT asset management where we will purchase their end of life electronics. So for example, like let's say Northeastern has like a bunch of Macs or tablets at the end of the year. They need to replenish pros, we'll work with them on something like that.
So how's the whole work-life balance going at this stage of the game?
I mean, I've been able to manage it, man. I'm really happy. I'm happy I have a job. It's fun. Like it's a my office is 10 minutes down the road from my house in Canton. Come home. Like I said, my wife is a incredible mother. So like, and she's a great wife too. So yeah, I feel like I lucked out, man. I feel like I won the lottery of life. Like seriously, like I have a day job. Like I'm able to still play music. I have a great family. My parents still are around right down the street. They live in Sharon still. My brother lives in Canton. So like, I don't know, all the pieces have like sort of like fit at this point, you know?
It's great, man. So what's anything on the rise? Anything you want to talk about that's we haven't?
Yeah, so, well, I mean, we have Bad Rabbit's sold out show at the Middle East downstairs on December 9th, and then we go to LA the weekend after that. And then, yeah, next year we have some cool shit happening for Bad Rabbits in Boston, which like, I don't even think I can mention it now, but like, it's gonna be sick next year.
Nice.
But it's, yeah, that's about it, man. Like, I think we covered everything, really.
I think we did.
Yeah,
And hey, man, it's great to see you, man. See you
you
still
too.
doing your thing and maintaining
Last
it
time I
all.
saw you was like on the beach I was
Yeah.
like, walking by with my beach chair. And I was like, "Yo, Leeds?"
Sit on the you were on like the private section of that beach too, man. You knew the good spot over there.
Oh, I have a friend I have friends. His mother owns a house. He grew up
Yeah,
there.
that's that. Yeah, I was about to say that's some local. That was like a local spot you were at
Yeah,
over
yeah,
there.
for sure.
Good job on the inside scoop.
Thanks for having me, man. This was awesome.
Yeah, dude. Thanks for making time. I know you were busy, and let's stay in touch, man. And congrats on
Absolutely.
all your success and your continued success and everything, man.
Likewise, man. Yeah, we'll stay in touch.
Definitely. So I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in to the Leeds Entertainment Podcast. A very special guest, Sheel Davé, man. Talk soon.
Peace.
Peace.